Hey, PreSales Collective, it's your host, James Kakis.
And I'm Maddie Strimick.
Today, we're going to be joined by Curtis Barber and Jess Ashwood to talk about Untapped Talent, the education exodus.
We're so excited to be highlighting educators who have made the transition into pre-sales and talk about how teachers make excellent solution consultants.
So whether you're an aspiring SC, new to the role, or a veteran in the role and know someone who make a great SC, or you're a hiring manager looking for your next top talent, today's episode is for you.
Enjoy.
Today's episode is sponsored by Consensus. Scale your pre-sales organization and deliver better experiences with intelligent demo automation. Experience an interactive video demo at goconsensus.com.
Hi there, my name is Yuji Higashi, co-founder of PreSales Collective, and I have big news to share with you if you're a pre-sales leader or an individual contributor early in your career. We recently launched 2 training and enablement programs aimed at helping you take your career to the next level. Both programs were created by pre-sales leaders with input from dozens of SC veterans across our community. Now, we'll be running cohorts each month, so if you're interested in participating, visit us at presalescollective.com/enablement to submit an inquiry, and we'll send you details about each program, including this curriculum and schedule. We look forward to working with you on growing your career and being part of your career journey. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Curtis, Jess, and Maddie, welcome to the PreSales Podcast. Look, we've got an episode full of firsts, and Maddie, you are the first fellow co-host of the PreSales Podcast. How are you feeling?
As someone who has listened to this podcast for over a year and a half, it feels very surreal and it feels like an honor to be here. Thanks for having me, James.
I am honored to have you, Maddie. I'm very excited about this. The first time we've done a 2-host episode, and I know that you're going to do a great job. And Curtis and Jess, first time on the podcast as solutions consultants. Congratulations on making the transition, which we'll talk about today. I really want to know how your life has changed over the past few months. Jess, you made a couple comments that I saw on social that have just really resonated with me. So tell me how different life is.
Oh my goodness. So life is so different. So the work-life balance is just surreal for me. I can go to the bathroom whenever I want. I can actually eat meals. And on my lighter days, I can go to Panera and work or Starbucks, or even I have a book I'm reading for my current role and I'll even read it at the pool. So it's just been a way different experience than life teaching. It's crazy.
I can't wait to dig in more about it. Curtis, how about for you?
You know, it's been a stark change from getting up at 5:30 every morning and driving to school and eating unhealthy breakfast on the way and chugging Red Bulls, which I still do. But, you know, it's just very different to be able to sort of live in your own space and have a little bit more control of your schedule, getting to go to the bathroom. That's like a top perk. I thought the pay was going to be a top perk, but going to the bathroom is like, honestly, the best part of it.
We're off to a great start on the podcast. I appreciate that insight, Curtis. I'm so excited for Maddie and I to talk to the two of you today and talk about your story, because the title of today's episode is Untapped Talent, the Teacher Exodus. So we are going to talk about the two of your journey from teaching to solutions and really how you utilize PreSales Academy, how you use the network and the community to get the positions that you have now. So to really set the foundation for today's episode, I want to talk about your journeys. What got you to where you are today? Curtis, let's start with you.
So I knew that my cup was getting empty at school. I actually thought the previous summer that if I just traveled, that I would be like magically better. And then I started last September and I was like, oh no, I'm still kind of over it. And I was like, oh no, that means something's got to change. And so I started desiring better work-life balance. I wanted to feel like I was getting ahead financially. I had a lot of desires. I really think the pandemic forced me to reconsider what I thought was important, because I think had that not happened, I'd still be on that trajectory, right? And so I started joining Facebook groups of teachers who were trying to leave, because I was like, how do my skills translate ultimately to something else? And I found a teacher transition podcast, a couple of them, but one chiefly that I started listening to, it's called the Teacher Exodus podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. They had interviewed a director of solutions consulting, Dan Lehman, and he mentioned his wife had just done a boot camp for pre-sales, and I had looked at a boot camp for project management previously. And so I went on Facebook. I was like, hey, tell me about this boot camp. And he was like, let me just give you my wife's number. And so I spoke with Kelly, who was in cohort 1 of PSA. And she was like, you can totally do this. Like, if I can do it and work full time as a teacher, you totally can. And so she not only encouraged me in the career, she encouraged me to do PSA. And so she was kind of like my gateway drug into pre-sales.
I love that story, Curtis, and thank you so much for sharing it. It's very interesting that there's podcasts out there to help people that are trying to get out of teaching. And it's interesting that the teacher exodus has actually been a driver to PreSales Academy because, Jess, that's something that you've been aware of as well. So talk about your journey.
Yeah, so I was very similar. I just started to feel burnt out is the easiest way to put it. I just wasn't feeling fulfilled anymore. I was noticing that every day I would come in and it would kind of feel like Groundhog Day, where I'm repeating the same thing over and over again. And I didn't want to get a master's degree or anything like that. So really my option was to just stay in the classroom and basically repeat the same things every day. I was kindergarten, which I loved, but very structured. We're doing the same routine every single day. And I was just kind of lacking fulfillment and started looking elsewhere, joined all the groups like Curtis did, all the Facebook groups. I saw in one of the Facebook groups about the Teacher Exodus podcast. So same thing. I listened to that podcast and I swear I listened to it on repeat before I even had the courage to say out loud that I was thinking about leaving. And I remember the first time I told my husband, it was like I had slapped him so hard. He was like, no, you can't do that though. You went to college for it. And that's like everyone's response. So I started having an identity crisis. I mean, I would like looked on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, you know how like everyone throws their net out way too wide and it's like, I'm a teacher and I want to transition and I'm willing to do customer success, recruiting, sales, like everything. Like that's what most teachers I see, that's the biggest mistake. So that's what I started doing. I think I changed my LinkedIn profile like 1,000 times before I actually got to the solutions consulting episode and found out about PreSales Academy. And I was so excited about PreSales Academy and talked about it with my husband. He was like, you're being scammed. Family's like, you're being scammed. And it was hilarious. But I was like, no, it's not a scam. There's all these legit people in here. They're not scamming me. And I signed up and that's how it started. They're not thinking I'm scammed anymore.
Yeah. And Jess, I don't know if you were like me, but I thought all sales were like solar panel sales, where you had to like go to a person's house or even just like call them. And like, if you didn't sell, you didn't eat. And so I was like, what? Sales? So yeah,
it sounded scary.
Yeah, definitely from that podcast. And also from just like the ones that I started listening to from the PreSales Collective, it definitely gave me a better idea of all of that.
I appreciate both of you sharing those perspectives because obviously it sounded like you were pretty burnt out. You were repetitive in the day to day, and then you casted a net to figure out what you wanted to do next. And this is actually something that we're very passionate about this concept of sales engineering as a title is actually what you guys mentioned is kind of scary. What is sales? This is my perception of sales. And then when you hear the term engineering, you're like, well, I'm not an engineer. I didn't get this background. And so that's why we have been having conversations around using terms like solutions consulting so that you don't have to fight that barrier of sales and engineering when career changers are trying to make a move into the profession, because we call it the best job no one's ever heard of. And I think if we make the title a little bit more appealing, it won't be as much of a blocker for folks.
Curtis, I really loved how you talked about trying to find where your skills transfer, and Jess, and trying to find, what's a good fit for you. And ultimately what we found is teachers make excellent sales engineers, that there's a ton of transferable skills, whether that's communication and empathy and so much more. Curtis, I would love to know, how did your education background really set you up for success in pre-sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the things that you said are absolutely true. And even specifically in the content that I taught, I was a high school theater teacher and theater director. And so I kind of leveraged both of those dual worlds for me, because it wasn't just that I was a teacher. What I really sold myself on, especially when I was job searching, was that I had all these robust social soft skills that I could bring to the table too. I knew how to present to a crowd and how to communicate. I knew how to be a subject matter expert. Now, I know Jess taught kindergarten. I mean, she had to be a subject matter expert on everything, including like everyday skills, but I definitely also knew how to sell the value of something to my clients, which were at the time my students. I mean, I think I say it on like a LinkedIn video, but if you've ever tried to get teenagers to do anything, you have to sell the value to them.
I love that, getting into value selling. It's interesting because in pre-sales, it really is that hybrid role. You can't just be the technical expert or just a good presenter. You have to be both. And I do think that teachers, they become subject matter experts on their topics and have to learn how to communicate that to all different types of audience, whether it's, first graders or 10th graders. Jess, why don't you talk a little bit about how your day-to-day has changed since landing a pre-sales role? When you wake up in the morning, how does your day start?
Yeah, so it is much different. So before, I commuted 45 minutes, and I also had to do the daycare drop off or the pickup. So like I would be getting up really early. If I wanted to exercise in the morning, I'd be getting up at like 4:45, 5 a.m., out the door by like 6:15. And that's like with the quickest shower. Even with the 45-minute commute, your girl was showing up to work with wet hair. Like I was like in and out of the shower. Now I wake up and it is beautiful. I'm like, the earliest I get out of bed is like 7. It is magical. Like there is time for everything. I have noticed that my stress levels are almost non-existent. So before, I think I was just so used to being stressed out that was just like my natural state. And I think I was just used to it at that point. And then I would go get my lovely child from daycare, who's 3, and he would want to play with me. And I'd be like, I just got to lay on this couch. Can we play on the couch like while I'm in this position? Now I feel like I'm rarely stressed. And then, when I pick up my toddler, I'm like, yeah, we can play. I can do things. And it's just, the schedule is nice. Like even on my busiest days, I still have time for a lunch. I still have time to work out if I want, and I still can go to the bathroom. I can't say the same about teaching. It's a big difference.
It sounds like just the quality of your life has changed drastically. Reduced stress, a lot more work-life balance. Curtis, what about for you? What would you say your stress level is now in your pre-sales role?
Definitely a lot lower. I'm not going to pretend that I go and work out. That's something I'm working on, but that's great, Jess, that you have found time for that. I'm like, I like sleeping in a little bit longer than I have. I feel like I'm catching up on 5 years worth of sleep a little bit, honestly. But, especially like when Jess and I started in our new careers, it was right when the inflation to gas was the highest. And I think that's when I noticed it the most. Is like, oh my gosh, I can work from home completely. Not every SD job is like that, but I can work from home. I can save on gas. I have a better relationship with my pets at home, and the ability to save a little and have time and energy to live a life outside of work.
I love all these things that you both are sharing, because I think a lot of us in the profession lose sight of these things. Like I think about myself, I was a career changer from operations. And while I can reflect on my experience of, a decade ago, some of these things that I probably really appreciated in the beginning, I've kind of lost sight about. We talk about the curse of knowledge and just being in the day to day and just hearing how, as Maddie mentioned, the quality of life has changed for the two of you. Like that's really rewarding, right? I think for us at PreSales Collective, PreSales Academy, these are the things that we get a lot of value out of doing, helping people change their lives monetarily, happiness wise, the balance. I mean, that's what this is about, right? That's why so many of us got into tech. As we talk about how each of you have really built your brands over the last couple of months, as someone who really loves LinkedIn, I've been so happy with how everyone has kind of leaned into LinkedIn to really showcase themselves. So Curtis, can you give me some insight to really how you built your brand on a product like LinkedIn as you were transitioning from the teacher role?
When I first joined LinkedIn, I said, oh God, this is like a lame Facebook, right? Because it was like all about work. And it wasn't until I kind of dug in a little deeper that I realized it was a great place to facilitate a conversation with people. And it gives you kind of unparalleled access to people that you might not be able to just as easily find somewhere else. You couldn't find their email. You couldn't find their phone number. You couldn't get a VP on a DM. But you can in LinkedIn. And so when I first started posting about it, I think my first initial thought was that I wanted to create like an aura of me knowing what I was talking about pre-sales, So I was like, if I can kind of post about it, then eventually I'll have a feed where I've engaged in conversation about it. And then for recruiters, that'll look better because it's like he knows something, right? And initially, it was me digesting what I was learning in PSA. And I started writing articles. Like I said, it helped me facilitate a conversation. And then it kind of changed at some point. I think I read The Social Sales Engineer by Patrick Pasang. And I started thinking about the idea of social selling. And I was like, this is a way I can differentiate myself from others. And so, the human brain comprehends video content 60 times faster than text. I don't know if you knew that, James, but it began to be a way for me to objection handle things recruiters might think about me. So it's like, if I can create a video, and I know this because like the VP that hired me ultimately watched a video on my profile and decided to give me a chance because of that.
Curtis, that is amazing. One, I love the data drop. Maddie will tell you, I love data drops. And two, just hearing your journey on that, because you have so many people who will look at a resume, right? They get dozens of applicants and then they're just looking at a resume. It's static, but you going above and beyond, making video content, letting people see who you are as a person, I think it allows you to stand out. And I've been very impressed with all the work and all the content you put out on LinkedIn. So great job there, Curtis. Jess, do you have anything to add here?
So like Curtis, I also utilized LinkedIn, not quite as often as him, but I do love looking at his posts. So I use LinkedIn because I feel like cold applying definitely is still a thing, but I have noticed that in this day and age, people are more likely to hire people that they've made connections with. The human connection is very important because like James said, there's going to be dozens of applications. And instead of weeding through all of those just pieces of like digital paper, it's much easier for the hiring managers to interview people that they've actually made human connections with. It makes you feel more real. So I would make videos on TikTok and then end up putting them on LinkedIn. And I feel like that made me more of like a reality to them. Like, wow, this girl she's talking about her transferable skills. She's confident. She's willing to put in the work. That just made me more hireable. Instead of taking the chance on a digital piece of paper, they're able to see me and hear me, and they're more likely to want to engage with me. And I actually got so many interviews from my LinkedIn posts, and working full time, having a toddler, the 45-minute commute. I actually stopped posting consistently on LinkedIn because my calendar would be booked out weeks in advance for interviews. I would have like 3 a day. My poor husband, I was like, can you leave early to pick up Oliver from daycare? I'm not going to make it. 45-minute commute. I'd put signs on my classroom and do interviews in my classroom. And they loved the educational backgrounds, like my alphabet and everything. So I really think having that connection, and I think that's really what got me interviews.
Wow, Jess, I love that you brought up the human connection component because yes, every once in a while you will get an interview from a blind application, but it really does come down to the networking that you do and the connections you build. Kind of on the other side of it, when it came to talking with those hiring managers and those recruiters, how did you go about proving your technical competence or your technical curiosity that's really needed in a pre-sales role?
So that was definitely my biggest weakness. And I made it clear in the interviews. That was always my answer. They're like, what's your biggest weakness? I'm like, the technical gap. So basically what I did was I did PreSales Academy and I leaned into like every resource I had time for. So of course I didn't have time for everything as a full-time mom, full-time employee commute, but anything I had time for, I would do. So I could put it on my resume. And I was very honest. Like I had things like SQL, APIs on my application. I did very basic courses like LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, and I made it very clear to them in the interview. I'm like, I'm not going to have a back and forth conversation with you about APIs, but I've done an entry-level course and I really enjoyed it. And I am willing to do the work to learn more. So I just was very honest in the interviews. Another thing that really helped me stand out, I had interviews with very complex companies, like data integration companies. And instead of just giving up when I got that technical assignment, I put in the work. Like I was like, I might message you and reach out because you gave me your email, but I'm not going to give up. So if at any point I'm annoying you and I'm reaching out too much, we can end this right here. I would tell them that. I'd be like, I'm not going to give up. So I'm going to do this demo for you. I'm going to be in your software. I'm going to do it. I might be annoying you though. So like if at any point I'm reaching out too much for too much assistance, just let me know. So there was one time with one company, I think over the course of the 2 weeks where I was working on my demo, I think I talked to the head guy like for at least 4 hours over that 2 weeks. And I made it clear to him, like, if this is too much for you, that's fine, but this is what I'm going to need to be successful. And I got an offer. I didn't take the offer, but I got an offer. So I think just being driven and showing them that you're willing to put in the work.
Well said, Jess, because I'm actually having some of these conversations now. I was talking to actually a solutions leader over drinks last night, and we were talking about the PreSales Academy. His perspective was, I really want to support career changers, but I don't know that professions like teachers are technical enough. We had a pretty intense conversation over the next 35 minutes about this subject, because I firmly believe, as Maddie mentioned earlier in the podcast, that this role is no longer just technical. And I think with PreSales Academy, we're putting people through the program who are hungry and who are competent and can learn these skills. And this is what we tell people is like, we're looking to help these individuals find roles at companies that are going to make them successful. If you're going to hire someone into an entry-level role and have these like technical expectations of them to talk to C-level folks, like you're setting them up for failure. We have to interview you as companies to make sure that these people, especially people that come from non-technical backgrounds like myself, can thrive in your organization, that you set them up for success. So I'm really happy that you brought that up, Jess. So you both talked about PreSales Academy. Curtis, I want to ask you, what was your experience like going through PreSales Academy?
It was really, of course, like life-changing in certain ways. I think that it was very manageable to do on a full-time schedule. The best part about PreSales Academy, honestly, was the mentorship. I think that's where a lot of the value came from for me, because it wasn't just enough that I was learning entry-level concepts and APIs and how data works. It was that I was getting a chance to talk to people working in the field and getting feedback from role plays from them. And it meant a lot to me when my mentor or my coach would say, yeah, that's a great role play. That's a great demo. Keep working on it. Do these 3 things because that's what happens in the real world. The next best part about PreSales Academy was the cohort situation. So you put all these diverse people together. And I remember Maddie and Yuji said at one of our first meetings, lean on your classmates. We're here for you, but they're going to be here for you as well. So I remember a lot of time spent outside of the class time working with my classmates. It was like a big group project, right? Where we were all trying to be successful, and we would give feedback for each other or jump on a Zoom and just talk things out with that. Our cohort was incredibly diverse. I think I was one of like 2 white dudes in it. Not that that's necessarily on purpose, but that gave me a lot of hope, because it means that the world of pre-sales is incredibly diverse. And I met some incredible people in my cohort, and they became the people that I would lean on after the cohort was done ultimately as well, because they were the people that were going through the same things as me.
The support system is so important. What I know about cohort 3 is that the group really, really bonded together well and really supported each other. And I think that makes a world of difference, right? Like as you're going through a program, things are tough. You're stretching yourself to learn things that you're not used to learning or you haven't ever learned in your entire life. Like being able to go to Jess and be like, hey, like, how are you handling this? Or are you struggling with this as well? It really makes a difference. So thanks for sharing that, Curtis. Jess, what was your experience with PSA like?
It was honestly essential for me to get the job that I have now. So I did actually get to a demo round of an interview before PreSales Academy. And I was like, I'm just going to try this because why not? And I totally couldn't do it. And I was like, I'm so glad I'm signed up for the PreSales Academy, but it was over a month away. So I was a little impatient, but I was like, okay, it's worth the wait because this ain't happening without the PreSales Academy. So of course I did the PreSales Academy. And like Curtis said, the mentorship was amazing. I really think that's definitely one of the best parts of the program. And it also just gave me like this schedule, which as a teacher, love schedules. And I really liked being able to check off the list. Like I did this day, I felt like I was doing something. I couldn't just build my own program. I needed mentorship. I needed people with experience to help me out. It was a lot, but it was very manageable. So I felt very challenged, but I also felt like it was doable. Cohort 3, I'm not lying. We're the best cohort, obviously, but we had a lot of fun. Like we were Slack messaging, we were Zooming. If I had harassed Yuji or Maddie too much that week, I would just message someone in the cohort. So it was a really nice switch up. And we would share slideshows, we would do mock demos with each other. Sometimes it was a little bit like the blind leading the blind, but it was still very helpful. And it was nice to be able to when I failed my one demo and I cried and someone else called me and they're like, I failed one too. You don't need to cry. They'll let you redo it. And, I'm like crying. But yeah, it was the best. I really don't think I would have made it without my cohort mates. So it was great. I really am glad I did it.
That's amazing. I mean, getting to work with you guys and your entire cohort was honestly just such a joy. You guys were so hungry. You guys were so supportive of each other and just so eager to land that role. And just getting to be a part and work with you guys during that entire process was just such an incredible experience. What I loved is coming out of the program, you guys both ended up with 2 really amazing offers. So what I would really love to know, I'll start with you, Jess. What made you choose the company that you're with today?
So I'm currently with UKG, a human resource software company. And, they have a tagline, our purpose is people. And it definitely holds true. Every company has these cute taglines, but no, it really is they really value their employees. They really value their clients and prospects. The retention rate is unreal. The reviews are unreal. I was like, hopefully this isn't too good to be true. But at this point, it's not too good to be true. I just got back from my first work trip. And honestly, it was amazing. I felt like royalty. There's just carts of food being rolled out at every moment. I don't think I felt a hunger pang the whole time that I was on this trip. And oh my gosh, everyone was so nice. I think I have hugged the whole group of people that were on the trip. Immediately upon meeting people, they were little squares, but I think I've hugged everyone that was on the trip. We had so much fun. One of the things that they said over and over again is you might be new, but you have a whole team of people behind you. So you might not know it, but your team knows it. So you don't need to be stressed out. You're going to keep learning. It was just very much a growth mindset. So that's what stuck out with me about this company. And I'm so happy I chose it.
Jess, I love that. Everything you mentioned really, speaks to UKG's culture. And I love you also mentioned the growth mindset and support that you're getting at that organization. Now, Curtis, I happen to know a little bit more about Soci and a little insight into their incredible culture. What made you choose Soci over other companies that you were exploring?
I ultimately had 2 offers on the table on the same day, which was kind of hilarious. I was like, holy crap, this is the decision of the century. And it really boiled down to a couple of factors. And I'm being a little political here because I know that both of them are going to be listening to this podcast. But ultimately, what it boiled down to was the current role I'm in will allow me to be in the field as a working SE faster. And so for me, I wanted that experience actually working with clients and doing tech vals, demos, and hopefully helping close deals faster. That kind of was ultimately the deciding factor. I think everything happens for the reason. And I love the other company. I'm still in contact with them. And so I'm just very happy to have landed at all. And the chance to, work on salary offers and kind of negotiate that was an experience for sure.
I love that you brought up that it was a faster ramp time. So that's probably going to provide you the opportunity to grow very quickly and get out in front of prospects sooner. And having the training that you do through PSA, it makes a lot of sense. You should be out there demoing. For those that don't know, Curtis is a master storyteller. His brand on LinkedIn, if you go and watch any of his videos, he is putting together incredible videos and storytelling left and right. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, Jess, I'd love to know, in your opinion, what qualities make educators excellent solution consultants?
Honestly, there are so many. So, of course, we're great communicators and really good at presenting. Our time management skills are insane because we're used to them taking our lunch. We're used to them having meetings during our planning time and just saying, figure it out. So we are amazing. I have been told over and over at my current job, your time management skills, they'll give me the work for the week that I'm supposed to do independently. And Wednesday by noon, I'm like, okay, cool. 18 hours of training videos, no problem. Got them done. So we're just amazing at that. We're really good at tell, show, tell. I've been told that throughout my demos that I've been doing in training. They say like, tell it to me like I'm 5. Well, I taught 5-year-olds for 6 years, so I can do that. I can't say enough about our soft skills. Teachers have the soft skills to be able to be successful in this role, and it definitely shows in training.
Jess, thanks so much for providing those soft skills. I absolutely agree with you. So Curtis, I'm going to put you on the hot seat a little bit. For all those leaders that are listening right now, you heard the soft skills from Jess. Why should solutions leaders hire educators for their open solutions consulting roles?
One thing that I heard a lot in interviews was that one central thing that people were looking for in their new hires in pre-sales was curiosity. And I think teachers know their ABCs, which are to always be curious. So teachers bring that to the table. And we know that in the arena of education, each student comes with different needs and different things. And so to teach each student individually is to sort of customize their educational plan. And that's exactly true in the selling cycle as well. Each customer has different pain points, and you have to meet them where they are, not where you think they should be. I think also teachers are good team players, and they know that they're constantly need to be learning and improving themselves. Every teacher goes to yearly professional development where they up their craft and they upskill. And that is a very valuable skill in a solutions consultant as well.
Absolutely. Everything that you listed are all the things that hiring managers tell us that they want to see every day. That curiosity and that learning mindset is so important. It's very clear that more educators should get into pre-sales based on y'all's experience and everything that we've talked about today. But my last question for you guys is, what advice do you have for teachers who want to leave education, want to change their careers, but maybe feel guilty doing so? I'm going to pass that first to Jess.
Honestly, I think it's going to start with, if a teacher wants to leave, I do not think that they should feel guilty about it. Currently, at this time, I do not know a single teacher that hasn't spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on their classroom materials. I don't know a teacher that does not come early or stay after. It's very rare to not see a teacher voluntarily giving up their time before and after school or for after school events, because that's the only way to get stuff done. Through the pandemic, we had to eat lunch in our classroom often with the kids. And then, of course, meetings. So teachers, if they don't stay after school or come early, they literally are just going to have to roll with whatever. I just don't think you can be an effective teacher without doing those things. So for me, if I wasn't going to be able to be an effective teacher, I was like, it's not worth it to me anymore. I love the kids. And that's usually what they say is it's for the kids. But if the only way for me to be successful is to spend my own money or work unpaid hours, then this is just not worth it. This isn't right. I think we need to stick up for that. We need to not be okay with that. And I think the moment that teachers are not okay with that, and we just have government funded classrooms with just what they provide, lessons are created just during paid time, I think they're going to be like, yeah, this is not good for the kids and we have to change something. But until teachers are willing to stop working for free, stop using their own money, they're not going to see those gaps. So I really think leaving is honestly the best way to help the profession. Something needs to change. Like, I worry for sending my toddler to school, but I think this is just what needs to happen in order to see change.
Jess, thanks for that insight. The statement you said, leaving is what needs to happen for this profession to change, I think is very impactful. Curtis, I would love your perspective on this as well.
I think the thing is, you're replaceable in any job that you do. It's really only in education that you feel this like hyper guilt for leaving, because like Jess said, a lot of the messaging is it's for the kids, but the thing is, the kids are not going to stay an extra year because they love you so much. So the guilt is natural. But if you leave for the reasons of wanting a better life, wanting better work-life balance, wanting better pay, literally, who can blame you for that? I remember I wrote a letter to my students sort of as a goodbye, because it was already summer and I didn't kind of do that tearful goodbye like the Mr. Holland's Opus where they all crowd around you and you did one last concert for them or whatever. But I told them this, that if I could teach them one last lesson, it would be this. When the door of opportunity opens, walk through it. That's how I live my life. And so I think other people should do that as well.
Wow. That was a way to end the podcast. Curtis and Jess, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Congratulations to the two of you. I speak from Maddie, Yuji, the rest of the team. We're super proud of you because, I know how hard it is to take the first steps in changing your life and changing your career, but you've actually done it and you've been successful in it so far. And you're really leading the way for other people who want to do the same. I just want to commend you on this because this is like my favorite thing about the program is like being able to help change people's lives. And the two of you hearing your stories, hearing the happiness and joy because you've made a career change just helps me get out of bed every day. So congratulations to the two of you. And thank you both for joining on the podcast. Maddie, that was a fun episode. What do you think?
It was a blast. Hearing Jess and Curtis go back and forth and talk about their lives post-program and now in pre-sales roles is just incredible.
I couldn't agree more. I said it on the podcast a couple of times. Like I just felt so good during that episode because you just take these things like going to the bathroom and being on your own schedule and eating lunch for granted. I mean, these people who work as teachers and as a parent myself, these are just things that I don't necessarily think about, but they're living day to day. And to hear the flexibility and freedom and how that has impacted their quality of life just really, really resonated with me.
Absolutely.
As someone who's the head of programming for PreSales Academy, for you, why have you seen teachers do so well in the program?
That's a great question, James. So it's pretty cool because looking back in our first cohort, Kelly Lehman was our first teacher student. We had no idea the doors that were about to be opened. And from that cohort on, we had teachers pouring in, applying and joining our program. And believe it or not, they're some of the first to get hired once they graduate out of their entire cohort. And I really think that goes down to the way that teachers operate and their level of excellence that they pursue in whatever they do.
Well said, Maddie. And let's be transparent with the audience. Like we went back and forth on this episode because I, as a parent, my daughter's school has lost a lot of their great teachers. And I was thinking, like, how do we talk about this on the podcast for people who were affected? But I think what resonated with me the most when you hear from Jess and Curtis and other teachers is they believe that an exodus will actually help the profession change because the way that they're really being treated in a lot of places is just not great. And it's having an effect on our children, right? And future generations.
I read on LinkedIn actually this morning that 75% of US schools are short on teachers. And so there's already this teacher exodus that's happening. But I love this perspective because it lets us or allows us to think about these teachers leaving this profession as also the change that we need in order for education to be successful in the future.
It's just so rewarding to hear these individuals talk about how they've taken the steps to change their careers. And as we talk about solutions and solutions consulting as a door and a profession that teachers can make a transition to, it just makes me really happy what we're doing with PreSales Academy and really what the profession is doing. And so I'd like to invite anyone who's listening to this that is looking to make a career change to check out presalesacademy.com. And if you're a hiring manager and you're struggling to fill your pipeline, go out there and take a chance on somebody. It can mean so much more to the individual that you hire and the impact on your organization when you find someone who has great soft skills. They might not have the hard skills or the technical skills, but they come in hungry, looking to change their trajectory and change their life. There's just something about someone who has a little bit of desperation that can mean so much to everyone around them. And so if you're a hiring manager and you think, hey, we don't hire non-traditional talent or people without technical skills, I'm going to challenge you to buck your traditional thinking. Find a role, create an associate role, create an internship role, create something to give somebody an opportunity and watch the impact it has on your business. And so, Maddie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. This was a lot of fun. I think we'll be seeing you as a host more often. What do you think?
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. All right, PreSales Collective, as always, please do like and share our podcast. Check out our upcoming events in the Member Hub, and we'll see you next week.